What is curriculum development? Based on what I've learned, curriculum development is a process that systematically organizes that will be instructed, who will be instructed, and how it will be instructed. Each component influences and interacts with another components. For example, that will be instructed is influenced by who is being instructed. They are arranged for development in age, maturity, and instruction. Strategies of how content is instructed are influenced by who is being instructed, their characteristics, and the setting. The 4 phases of development. Phase 1 is planning. The planning phase lays the establishment for all the curriculum development steps. The first step in this phase is identifying issues, problems, and needs. The need for curriculum development usually develops from a concern around a major issue or problems. The second step is forming a curriculum development team. This step is done after the nature and scope of the issue is addressed. Then that's the time when the curriculum team can be selected. The objective is to obtain expertise for the areas included within the scope of the curriculum content among the group members and create a compelling team. Lastly, the step needed is to conduct needs assessment and analysis. The first phase in this step is the needs assessment. This is the first procedure where several strategies are focused on learning. It is about what is needed and by whom relative to the recognized issue. Strategies covered in this stage incorporate knowledge, attitude, and practice surveys. The second phase in this step is the analysis. This illustrated the strategies or methods on how to utilize the data and outcomes of the information collected. It identifies the gap or spaces between knowledge and practice, trends developing from the information, a process to prioritize needs and recognize of the characteristics of the students. The second phase is the designing. The designing phase determines the expecting results, what learners will be able to do after participation in curriculum exercises, the content that will be instructed, and the strategies or how it will be instructed. The steps incorporated in this phase state intended outcomes, selecting the content, and designing the experiential methods. After doing so, the steps included in Phase 1, the steps indicated in Phase 2 must be accomplished. It needs to determine what are the intended outcomes or the educational objectives. It follows by selecting the content that will be taught to the students. Lastly, the teacher must design experiential methods or strategies that cover the concepts such as experiences, share, process, generalize, and application. The phase 3 is what we call the implementing. The implementation phase incorporates producing curriculum products, test and revise the curriculum, recruit and train facilitators, and implementing the curriculum. After successfully doing phase 2, which is designing the curriculum, the next thing to do is it's suggested for finding and evaluating the existing materials. It needs to be evaluated using specific criteria, and then that's the time for producing the curriculum materials. A curriculum must undergo testing and revision after it is produced. The testing must also be evaluated to determine if it needs to undergo a revision. The next thing to do is recruiting and training the facilitators of the curriculum. It is highly suggested to have a training program so that the developed curriculum materials will not become wasted or pointless. Afterward, the implementation of the curriculum will happen and it will be effective. The phase 2 is the evaluating. The evaluation phase in the curriculum covers the designing of evaluation strategies, reporting, and securing resources. The two types of evaluation are formative and summative evaluation. So the formative evaluation are utilized said the needs assessment, product advancement, and testing steps. Summative evaluation are embraced to measure and report on the result of the curriculum. This step reviews assessment procedures and proposes basic methods to deliver substantial and reliable data. An arrangement of questions is posed to direct the summative evaluation process, and a sample evaluation format is recommended. Reporting and securing resources is the final step. The reporting must indicate and show the effectiveness of the audience for them to support the curriculum enhancement. Thus, they can provide help in securing the resources to be justifiable and accountable. The evaluation and reporting strategies are centered on providing evidence to support the effectiveness of the developed curriculum. So, the fundamentals of curriculum designing. We have here behavioral objectives or intended learning outcomes. And then the next one is content or subject matter, references, and the last one is teaching methods. Assessment and evaluation. Self-assessment. It requires students to reflect on their work and judge how well they have performed in connection to the evaluation criteria. The center is not essentially on having students create their grades, but rather giving opportunities for them to be able to distinguish what constitutes a great piece of work. The peer assessment includes students to taking obligation for evaluating the work of their peers against set evaluation criteria. Teacher assessment. It is utilized to determine the current level of student accomplishment and accordingly to decide suitable instructing procedures and objectives for the student. The assessment and evaluation are very important in the learning process. It is used to determine if the written objective in the curriculum is met at the end of the instruction. The self-assessment, peer assessment, and teacher assessment have their own identified purpose to use. These assessments are used to evaluate the standing of themselves and others. It is also significant to use to easily monitor each other's success. Kinds of assessment. The formative assessment. The objective of formative assessment is to screen student learning and give continuous feedback to staff and students. It is an assessment for learning. If planned suitably, it assists students to distinguish their qualities and shortcomings. It can empower students to progress their regulatory aptitude. Summative assessment. The objective of summative assessment is to assess student learning after an instructional unit by comparing it against a benchmark. Summative assessments frequently have high stakes and are treated by the students as they need over development assessments. However, criticism from summative assessments can be utilized formatively by both students and faculty to direct their endeavors and exercise in ensuing courses. Conclusion. In conclusion, change is inevitable and it happens in the curriculum. The curriculum needs to be enhanced so that it can help the learners to learn more effectively. Curriculum development is a continuous process to assist the learners to be able to acquire the goals and objectives of teaching. Also, the four phases of the curriculum must be considered and strictly follows to achieve effective curriculum development. It needs to be planned, designed, implemented, and evaluated. Besides, there are fundamentals of curriculum designing that need to be addressed. There are behavioral objectives or intended learning outcomes, content or subject matter, references, and teaching methods. At the end of every instruction, the assessments and evaluations must be done to determine if the objectives is achieved.